We're just out of COP27, going into COP28 in Abu Dhabi and Dubai at the end of the year. We've made some progress, not enough progress. Are you sure that we can actually make meaningful progress on that 1.5 degrees and not just toe the line?
I'm convinced we can, but we have to have a lot of countries step up and decide that they're going to reduce their emissions at an accelerated rate and begin to get more engaged in the transition. But we can do it. The key is bringing certain technologies to scale and mostly accelerating individual nation efforts. In the United States, obviously, President Biden's passed the Inflation Reduction Act. It's already having a profound impact, and it encourages everybody to say, whoa, you know, if we really go at this, we can get something done.
Who do you think could do better quite quickly?
Well, I think there are 20 countries, which are the 20 largest economies of the world. We're one of them. We're number two. We're number one economy, but we're number two in emissions. China's number one in emissions and number two in size of the economy. Both of us have to be doing everything we can to reduce emissions. We're hoping we can work with China to encourage China in certain things that we think would make a difference. We're not trying to, you know, pick one country particularly. We're doing the same thing with India. We're working with India. We're working with Indonesia, Vietnam, Mexico, Brazil. A lot of countries could obviously do more, but they need help. Some of them need new finance. Some of them need technology, and that's what we're working at providing.
But are you hearing positive signs from China that they're willing to work more together and more together on climate change?
Yes. China has engaged in conversation with us again. I have a very positive relationship with my counterpart. She is Envoy. We've known each other a long time. I believe that we can make progress together, and I think we could be sharing thoughts and perhaps even joining in some efforts that would accelerate it for other people too. But China is transitioning. China is already deploying a massive amount of renewables. They're the largest producer of renewables in the world. What we need to do is get less coal and begin to move away from coal that's unabated. Coal that is not reducing the emissions is the greatest challenge right now on the planet.
If they signed up on the methane pledge, would that be a very strong signal? That
well, they have a methane plan. I've been shown that plan. I know what it is. They're seeking the final approval of it through their government process. And they say that they're going to be releasing it publicly somewhere in the near term.
What are you most frustrated by in your job? I know you're an optimist, and I know you always focus on the positives, but it's been a tough 12 months. The
biggest frustration right now with respect to moving rapidly in dealing with the climate crisis is the lack of available concessionary funding. Funding that can be made as a grant or that can leverage other money to be invested in order to accelerate the transition. We really need to find new ways of attracting capital to the table. One of them is with a blended finance approach where we get public money that can de-risk a deal so that the private sector can come in and not feel it is at risk to such a degree that they're not willing to make the investment. President Biden is, I know, committed to trying to effect some reforms with respect to the multilateral development bank structure. We think there's a lot more lending that could take place at lower rates that would be helpful to countries. So there are definitely things we can do. But in the end, the private sector is the one entity that has the levels of funding that need to be invested in this effort.
But private sector and certain chief executives are wondering whether it's worth marketing some of their products actually in certain states in the U.S. because of the backlash from some of the governors.
Well, that is a very unfortunate thing that is taking place. There are some governors who've decided they just want to attack the concept of dealing with the climate crisis, but that is completely contrary to all of the science. And the CEOs of the most responsible companies and the largest companies in the world are all moving to reduce their emissions. So someone in those states ought to be asking, what does the governor know that people who run these largest companies in the world and employ millions of Americans are listening to and are responding to?
But Larry Fink of BlackRock says a lot of these attacks are very personal and difficult. What do you tell a chief executive in that position?
I think that to be a good chief executive today and to lead your company properly, you need to take into account the risks that exist of not acting. The supply chain disruptions that will occur, the loss of market share, America not being a good, being deemed not to be acting responsibly and therefore maybe even paying an extra price to sell its goods in certain countries. There's a growing movement now to have adjustments, in the border tax adjustments for places that choose not to clean up their act, so that they're selling goods that are made from a dirty process, while other people are having more expensive goods because they're actually investing money in the effort to be good citizens.
John Kerry, some have concerns that COP28 will be in an oil-producing country, and actually the president of COP28 is an oil major. Do you share those concerns?
I know the leadership of the UAE very well, and I know that Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed, who's the president of the Emirates, is deeply committed to move in a real way, measurable, accountable, transparent, that is going to do their share to try to respond to the needs to adjust all of our practices on a global basis. And I know that they're not thinking of themselves as an oil company now. They're thinking of themselves as an energy company. And they are on the vanguard. They're on the cutting edge of helping to fund major renewable deployment and research and development on a global basis. They were one of the first countries to come up with a reduction target. So, it's a fair question for people to ask, and everybody's going to have to watch carefully what's happening. But I have considerable confidence in the person who's been chosen to be the leader and in the country.
Will you stay on as special envoy until?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have any plans right now to do otherwise. I am committed to trying to get some of these things done and put them in a place where I think things can go forward. And we're doing that.